Hello, friends. How you doing? It's Dan here, and it's another Sunday night. Now, I came in tonight not having a whole lot to talk about, just a couple things, but I'm always unsure of how to start the show because I tend to get people to join in once I get started. I'm not at a point now or yet where people are just here waiting. So I am really not talking to anybody for the first couple minutes. And that seems kind of life effect. I could do whatever I want. I could say whatever I want because nobody's here. I could just be silly. I could sing. But then I got to worry about, lawsuits, stuff like that. So, somebody's joined. Hello. Hey, Krypton. Nice to see you. Good to see you. Um, so, yeah, I won't sing, I promise. But tonight we're going to talk about. Um, I was talking to Lisa and I said, "What should I talk about?" And she said, "You could talk about how summer's no fun when you become an adult." Hey, Ed, and it's the heat and all the crowds and stuff. I'm like, so my show's just become the grumpy old man show. And then I realized it really kind of is the grumpy old man show because I just kind of talk about things that are bugging me. But we're going to talk a bit about lanterns. Let's see. Krypton says, past 2 days, I was bummed out with the news of uncertainty of lanterns. I hope to God it's fake or just a red herring. If it's what I think you're talking about, that something's going to happen early on, that rumor, then yeah, I've heard that too, and I've got some thoughts on that. So as part of what we're going to talk about lanterns, and we're going to talk a bit about this thing where there's a bunch of videos out there about uh, either how DC's on the verge of another reboot and all of this stuff, or you know how James Gunn can save the DCU. So I've got some thoughts on that too. No, the rumor is not their offing guy, but all right, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. We are going to talk about lanterns. Now, I don't want to say what the spoiler is because if you haven't heard and you want to go in spoiler free, then you should be able to do that. This is more, let's just say this. A lot of old school comic people, Hal Jordan is their favorite Green Lantern. There are others whose favorite is Kyle Rayner. Some it's John Stewart. Some it's Guy Gardner. I don't like, I worry about those people. I really do. But you get the idea. And they're building this universe, DC universe. And it would be tough to really focus on so many different lanterns. Because then there's also Jessica Cruz and Baz, whatever his name is. I'm not familiar with him too much. And then, of course, you go into the intergalactic ones and Kilowog and Tomar Ree. And I mean, you could build an entire universe around just the Green Lanterns and all the different characters. It says, "Sorry, but I'm Team Guy. He makes stories so much more fun to read." All right, I'm not. I won't hold that against you, Ed. You know, guys got some good stuff. You know, so um, so basically, what DC and James Gunn have to do is they kind of need to figure out who is going to be their focused Green Lantern. Who is going to be the main Green Lantern? Now, Jessica Cruz is going to get an animated series. The just like My Adventures with Superman, there's going to be a My Adventures with Green Lantern, and Jessica Cruz is kind of the star of that. So they're giving some time to her. And guys in the Superman movies, but I'm going to tell you a different story to get back to where I am. You guys remember when Batman Begins came out? Christian Bale, Liam Neeson. I remember going to see that with my friend Lacey. And I remember her coming to me afterwards and saying, "Why did they change Batman's origin?" I'm like, what do you mean? She said, "Well, the Joker kills his parents." And I was like, what? No, no. The Joker doesn't kill Batman's parents. And then I remember, oh, in the Michael Keaton version, the Joker kills Batman's parents. And for her, that was her experience with Batman. She saw the Joker kill Batman's parents. So to her, Joe Chill and the Joker are the same person. So in Batman Begins, we see Joe Chill and he doesn't become the Joker. It doesn't make sense to her. So I say that because while if you grew up in the 70s and the 80s, Hal Jordan was Green Lantern. But if you grew up in the 90s and your experience with the DC Universe was the Justice League animated series, your Green Lantern is John Stewart. That's the guy. He's part of the Justice League. He's, got a thing with Hawkgirl, and, he's the tactician and the sniper, and, which you sit down today and, that's the hardest part of doing these adaptations is that you've got decades of history and you want to tell a compelling story. So if you sit down and you just we're going to tell the origin of Hal Jordan and how he joined the Green Lantern Corps. Okay, but there's going to be people out there who want to see Guy Gardner. They're going to want to see John Stewart. And how quickly do you get to them? Do you rush to them? Do you ignore them? Do you just focus on Hal? How quickly after the Winter Soldier were people like, when is he going to become Captain? When is Bucky going to become Captain America? When's Falcon going to become Captain America? Because that's what a lot of people see. Because, we don't have the decades of time to build up those characters. Krypton says they could treat Lanterns like Star Trek Next Generation, with each Starfleet crew getting more to shine, but 23 episodes to explain each side character. I was 4 or 5 years old. My in 94 Green Lantern character was Kyle Rayner with Superman and Mongo. Okay, that's not a bad idea, but what we're going to get is I think for the DCU, John Stewart is going to be the main Green Lantern. Okay. Now, that leaves Hal Jordan out in the cold, but the way they're doing Lanterns is a way to introduce an older Hal and a younger John Stewart, Kyle Chandler, Aaron Pierre, and bring them into the universe with paying homage to the Hal Jordan character, but giving us the John Stewart character, because that is for a lot of people, that's who Green Lantern is now. Plus, you know, it's more diversity. A lot of the DC characters, when you go to the main ones, they're all very white. So mixing it up a bit, it's a good idea, because you want everyone to feel represented, right? You want to see, different things. And John Stewart's a well-established character. He doesn't take away from Hal Jordan. Now, the rumor gives us the idea that we may not get along with Hal. And that makes sense, because we don't hear that Hal's going to be in Man of Tomorrow. We hear John Stewart is. And we know that it's going to be two different timelines. There's the 2016 and the 2026. Now, the rumor is that something happens early on, and what's probably the 2026 version, that kind of feeds what's going to happen in the 2016, or kind of gives us more impetus to watch the 2016. Makes sense. That's good writing. That's good storytelling. When Arrow came out, we got the flashbacks and the modern day, and we saw stuff in the modern day that we had to then build up to in the flashbacks. So it's pretty clever storytelling. It's a good way to do it. But is this going to upset some people? Well, let's stop for a moment and think about Hal Jordan's history. Yes, Hal Jordan was a Green Lantern for a long time. And in this case, from the 1950s to the 80s or 90s, when they did the Parallax story. And then after that, they had the whole, with him being dead, and the run as a Spectre. So just because, if we do end up not getting a lot of Hal. Hey, Jay. Then there's a chance we get him as a Spectre, which would be interesting, or Rebirth, or, there's possibilities. So if the rumors are true and the main focus is going to be on John Stewart after this series, then, it doesn't necessarily close the door on the character. Was it weird that it felt off when Ollie stopped narrating Arrow? Yeah, I agree. It did. Now, they're already talking about it being a multiple season show. So, rumors are rumors. We could go through and, the rumors for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was that I think just at some point everybody was supposed to die. Star-Lord was going to die. Gamora was going to die again. Rocket was going to die. Everybody was going to die. It was just going to be just a horrible. It even made me a little apprehensive to watch the movie because of all the rumors of people dying. But that didn't happen. So, don't necessarily take rumors as facts until they happen. Because like I said, they're rumors for a reason. Let's see, a lot happens there. It's 8-issue season, 8-episode season. Yep. Lantern season 2 is in talks. Yeah, Christopher Cantwell is already on board. Now, it hasn't been greenlit yet. That's the one thing to keep in mind. But they want to be ahead of the game because I think they want to be able to turn these out pretty quickly. So they've already got someone involved. Christopher Cantwell, if you don't know, is from the show *Halt and Catch Fire*, which is pretty popular. It's a pretty good show. So, and he's going to step in because some of these other guys, Chris Mundy is there, but Tom King is overdoing the show running and on Mr. Miracle animated series. And then I don't remember the Damon Lindelof, I think, has another show he's doing. So, they got this going, and then they're bringing Christopher Cantwell to work with Chris Mundy to keep things rolling. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about the rumor yet, like I said, because it's still just a rumor. But also, even if the rumor's true, this is comic book stuff. There's no guarantee that what we see is going to last. Yeah, I think it's going to be cool to get Ulrich Thompson as Sinestro. I would love to see Sinestro as a big part of, they seem to be building up what could be the Legion of Doom. We're going to get Gorilla Grodd, it looks like. Jimmy Tataro, I think his name is supposedly being cast. And we're getting Sinestro, and we're going to have Lex Luthor. We're starting to build up a nice core for the Legion of Doom. That would be fun. And it doesn't seem like if James Gunn is going to do something, he would do a Justice League versus the Legion of Doom type thing. That just seems right up James Gunn's alley. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about it. And we're not that far away from Lanterns. There's going to be a big push for it at San Diego Comic-Con. That's the other thing I saw. DC Studios is not going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. They're blowing their chance, da-da-da. No, they're not going to be there to hype Man of Tomorrow, which doesn't come out for a year. They're going to be there, though, to hype Lanterns. There's a special panel and another side event where you go and you can be trained by the Guardians. They're going to be there for my adventures with Superman. They're going to be there for Batman Cape Crusader. So there's going to be plenty of DC Studios at Comic-Con. They're just not going to do the giant Hall H panel where they come out and announce 20,000 things, which, as much as those are fun events when Marvel or DC does that, I don't think they're necessarily good ideas, because then you spend the entire time with people going, well, what's going to happen with Swamp Thing? You said Swamp Thing. We're going to do James Gold Swamp Thing. Where's Swamp Thing? Well, we just put out this other movie. Yeah, but where's the Swamp Thing? That's what we want to talk about. And I think that's one of the big problems right now, is that both Marvel and DC and Star Wars, they need to start controlling the narrative. So Jay's plugging Banshee with Anthony Starr and Ulrich. I've been meaning to give that a shot. And I'm kind of running out of shows right now. I've caught up on everything. I'm watching Bridgerton right now. That tells you how far behind I am on shows. I've watched The Night Agent, and yeah, I'm waiting for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I'm waiting for Lanterns. But yeah, behind on or running out of shows to watch. So Banshee may be the way to go. So yeah, don't stress out too much about what's going to happen in Lanterns until it happens. You got to go in with an open mind, and if you're going to let rumors kind of get to you, Krypton, Stop reading the rumors. Because a lot of times they're not true. I mean, how many rumors have we heard about Batman Part 2? And now there's a new batch of rumors of who Scarlett Johansson is playing and, who Sebastian Stan is playing. That's completely different than what we originally were told. At some point, we'll know. And then we'll get the movie and we can enjoy the movie. But if you go in with expectations and stuff, you're just going to kind of take yourself out of the show. So, are you a Robert Eggers fan? I'm not placing the name. Give me a reference on Eggers. I still have not had a chance to watch the final Daniel Craig Bond. Lisa wants to watch it with me, and we just haven't had the opportunity. So hopefully I'll get to it this week. Yeah, that was one of the things I was thinking about what I'm going to do in the show tonight. I didn't have anything to talk about. I mean, what am I going to come on here going, so what do you think about Count Binface running for Claxon Parliament? By the way, if you don't know about Count Binface, you definitely should be checking that out. That is a hilarious situation. But let's see. She's going to be Red Claw and he'll be the ventriloquist source. Trust me. Yeah, that's a good possibility, Jay. Actually, I think Sebastian Stan's going to be the guy, and Mitch McConnell's going to be the ventriloquist dummy. So, look, I'm bringing into the news. The thing I wanted to talk about is the narrative going on right now with so many websites, so many podcasters and YouTubers and TikTokers. It's this whole negative thing that they're talking about with Gunn. I mean, I saw an article that I saw one guy post that Paramount's not happy with James Gunn and all this stuff, and Gunn is already 1 foot out the door. It's like, wait, what? What? Cosmic Book News, Jeff Snyder got on my. Yeah, see, I follow those guys, but I just stopped. I stopped kind of following them because they have these narratives they go. Jeff Snyder's one of them. My Time to Shine or Hello, My Time to Shine or whatever it is, and then they pound the negativity because they want you to sign up for their newsletter. Daniel Rickman, Jeff Snyder, these guys, they're all making money off of peddling these stories. Now, me, I'm not making any money. I come on here at night on Sunday nights because I enjoy doing this with you guys. And, if I can gain more people when it comes time for me to put a new book out, maybe you guys will go buy it. So it's a little advertising, yeah, but it's mainly I come to hang out with Jay and Krypton and Ed and Kat and everybody else who shows up. So Robert Eggers, he did The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, Nosferatu, and now he's doing. Okay. I can't say I'm a fan of him, not because I think he's anything wrong with it. I haven't really had a chance to watch much of his stuff. I want to. Werewolf looks interesting to me. But yeah, I do need to check out some of the stuff, especially The Northman. So thank you, Jay. Yeah, and I hold off on a lot of news. Like the Green Lantern rumor. The only reason I mentioned it is A, because Krypton was upset by it. but also because I could see how that would work with the story they're telling. But again, it's not necessarily true. But, you know, I'm not going to come on here and tell you, A, James Gunn is about to leave DC Studios because there's no evidence of that. The guy is currently in Atlanta filming Man of Tomorrow. Or is it in London? I think it's Atlanta. Anyway, he's working his ass off on the film. Is he 1 foot out the door? How can people say that? He's got all this stuff going on. He's supposedly already met with Paramount. Paramount's upset. Let's take 1 minute and think about where we're at in the DCU. Now, part of the problem is that the DCU is coming after the DCEU. And there was so much indecisiveness with the DCEU that they got rid of Zack Snyder, and then they started bouncing all over the frickin' place. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They would change tones. They were chasing Marvel, and in doing so, anytime something didn't work exactly how they wanted it to, they ran in the exact opposite direction. It's kind of like politics, vote in a Democrat. Okay. It's not perfect. Vote in a Republican. Okay. It's not perfect. Vote in a Democrat. But, ships and movie studios and countries are like ships, not speedboats. They're like ocean liners and aircraft carriers. Movement is gradual. You have to start kind of turning and leaning into something. You can't just turn on a dime. So I don't think they're going to make a change because it would make no sense. If they suddenly fired James Gunn or got James Gunn to get out of his contract, who on earth would come in and take over? Nobody of status, nobody of experience. Sure, they called me to come in and take over. I'm taking the job. Sure. But, you're not going to get your Kevin Feige. You're not going to get your big name person. James Gunn is already kind of undoing what the DCEU did. But if you look at Superman as being their version of Iron Man, then Supergirl is their version of Incredible Hulk. And yeah, Incredible Hulk did a little bit better at the box office. But audience-wise, Supergirl has a 75% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Incredible Hulk had a 69%. 75%. Again, that means 3 out of every 4 people who watch this movie have a favorable opinion of it. How is that bad? Seriously, how is that bad? Is it doing poorly box office? Yeah. But look at the economy. Look at the price of gas. And look at the cost of a ticket. Is Supergirl a big enough attraction to get, a big enough name, a big enough draw to get people to go, I'm going to take the $15, $20 I've got that I could put elsewhere, and I'm going to put it here and go see this movie. Supergirl probably isn't that big of enough a name. Superman got people to do it. Well, Spider-Man, yeah. But look at the lower box offices for the Minions. They came in about 20 million less than what people predicted. The Minions. Minions have been box office gold. 20 million less opening. It was supposed to be in the 80s or 80s. I think it was in the 60s. So, and all of box office is down. because people are going to go, look, the people who went and saw Supergirl, again, 3 out of every 4 liked it. Now, how many of the people that didn't like it are real confirmed viewers, and how are the people out there just putting down everything that comes out of James Gunn stuff? So you got to keep that in mind. But also, it's just a day and age where people are like, you know what? I'm going to hold off and I'll watch it when it hits HBO Max or digital. It's going to be on digital, what, 32 days after its theatrical release? Spend $20 there and your whole family can sit and watch it, as opposed to going to the theater and having to pay $20 a person. And I bet you the scores start going up when it starts getting at home. It is a bold choice doing Supergirl, but it also makes sense because Gunn is building this part of the universe. I think he wants to give. I don't think he pushed Batman out as quickly as he would have, because you've got the Matt Reeves stuff going on. And even though he wants to do his own Batman, he wants to give Matt Reeves has been years. So it wouldn't have been very, a good idea to put another Batman out before Matt Reeves got his second movie out. Once Reeves gets his second movie out, you can put out a Batman Brave and the Bold. But you got to give him at least a chance to put a second movie out and start on his third before you start, making it a little more murky. And then with Wonder Woman, it wasn't that long ago that Wonder Woman 1984 came out. How many people in the general, we're comic book people. This is what we do. This is, we follow this stuff. This is the stuff we love. But how many of the general audience people, like my friend who thought the Joker always killed Batman's parents, are going to go, oh, another Wonder Woman movie? So trying to put a movie out, a female lead character off of Superman, then Supergirl, it makes sense. It actually does make sense. And I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have. Yeah, it didn't do that well at the box office. But I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. I've seen it. I went to the theater. I don't go to the theater for that many movies anymore. Not just because they're expensive, but, I got, my health issues and stuff. Getting to the theater, and it's not an easy thing. So if I'm going to go see a movie, it's a movie I really want to see in the theater. So I haven't gone to see the last few Marvel movies in the theater. I waited for Fantastic Four. I waited for Thunderbolts. I waited for Captain America 4. And those were all, I was fine with waiting for them. Now, Spider-Man may see in the theater, but we'll see. The Avengers movies, I'll probably go see that in the theater. Though I'm not feeling the buzz for those yet. I honestly do have more affection right now towards the stuff that's coming out of DC than I do the stuff with Marvel, because there's a lot more feeling of hope, and a lot more feeling of just what I used to read comic books for coming out of DC, where Marvel, it just feels like we're constantly building to the next big event. We don't even know what the DC event's going to be, when it's going to be, if there's going to be one. But Marvel, it's like, everything feels like it's just another piece in the puzzle, and you can't really watch them alone. And, most of my favorite Marvel movies are the first movies in a franchise because they feel like standalone thing. Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, um, the first Iron Man, the first Captain America. I love all those movies. Fantastic Four I didn't like as much, but then again, it didn't necessarily feel like that. It felt like it was a connector piece. So I think that's why, the Batman and Superman 2025, even Supergirl, they felt more enjoyable to me. I'm more likely to sit down and watch them again. You know what I've never watched a second time? Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. I've never watched them a second time because they're so emotional and they're so draining. So I have watched the fight scene in Avengers Endgame. Pops up on my YouTube feed or my TikTok, and Captain America's in there. On your left. I'm there until it's over. But all of these Marvel stuff seems to have a lot more angst to them. And I got enough angst in the real world right now. I like fun. I liked the fun I had in the Superman movie. And I had fun in Supergirl. So let's see. Bulljoy. If they had the option like back in the day where you could rent it same day of release, personally, I think folks would watch it at home. Yeah, you know what? I would. I will admit it. If I had the choice between going to the movie theaters or just paying the 9.99 or whatever it is to watch it at home, I'd watch it at home happily. Absolutely, I would. Uh, there are some people still to this day that thought Cavill was still Superman. I don't think anything is going to make it less confusing. Some people, yeah, that is true. Spider Man's going to crush, and while I liked Supergirl in box office, to me doesn't matter. A lot of people they see low box office and automatically assume it's a bad movie. Yeah, but how many of these movies have hit home, and then suddenly people are coming out going, "Wait, that was a good movie. What the? Hey, I like that. What the? Andrew says I saw Endgame 6 times in theaters. Wow, I'm kind of blown away by that. That scene is awesome, but you've got so much of you know the dourness of the beginning of it that it's hard for me to sit down and watch it from beginning to end. So I used to like to watch the Marvel stuff. I would think, well, I'm just going to start from the beginning and go through it, and I don't do that anymore. So, oh, I saw that the A list thing, and that's what 4 movies a week. And I saw that at the theater the other day, and I'm like, who on earth goes to see 4 movies a week? And then I had one of the home nurses come in, and I had just seen Supergirl, and I was talking to her. She says, "Yeah, we're going to go see Supergirl this afternoon." Oh, great! She goes, "Yeah, we're going. I am one of those A-listers, so I'm going to go each day over the weekend." I'm like, "Oh, you're the well." Now I see another one, Ed. I mean, I'm Andrew. So, Masters of the Universe is getting a sequel, so anything is possible. Still haven't watched it, but looking forward to it. But see, that's the thing is Prime came out and said, they weren't looking at the box office. And it could be true. They're looking at the marketing and the merchandising. And that's something to remember about Supergirl is that it had over $100 million worth of marketing deals. So they didn't spend as much on the not merchandising, advertising, because they did these deals. Every time Sephora put out a commercial with Millie Alcock in it as Supergirl, DC didn't pay for that. Sephora did. So, it's the film didn't cost as much as Superman. They had this marketing thing. So it's still unknown how much they're going to lose. They've made 115 million at the box office now. And of course, you got to subtract, the theater cut, stuff like that. But it's hard to say how much they're going to lose because the studios don't come out and say, oh, it cost us this, we did this. And they don't tend to come out and say whether it's a loss or whatever. But let me say this. If next month Lanterns comes out and it does well, like Peacemaker, like Penguin, and then in October, Clayface comes out, which is like a $40 million movie, and it opens for 25, 30 million, like a lot of horror movies are doing nowadays. And it makes it, it doubles its budget or whatever. Oh, and as we start seeing more and more stuff for the Batman and for Man of Tomorrow, Supergirl's going to get forgotten. The reason we're seeing so much about it right now is that all of these people who have built their careers and their jobs around talking about superhero movies need something to talk about, need something to get people to click. And being negative about, oh, DC's going to die. Oh, this is going to happen. That, oh, I've got a new rumor about this. Does it need to be true? No, because nobody ever calls them out on true, untrue rumors or stuff like that. So let's see. So about the Furious, the movie people are going to regret not seeing in the theater is Furious. It's amazing. Furious. I'm not familiar with that one. When I go to the theater, I usually try to see two since I'm already there. That makes sense. Marvel critical response is the reason Marvel Studios is striving. If MCU failed in phase one, Kevin Feige drop out and other executives, yeah. John Cole is definitely the exception. A movie opening on Friday, and he's already seen it 7 times by Monday. The goalposts keep getting moved. Yeah, they do. TCU Studios needs to thrive with positive critical reception. That's the franchise business. Yeah. And again, you know what I see a lot online? I mean, a ton is people coming out going, I don't get the hate for Supergirl. And they're not coming out saying it's an amazing movie, but it doesn't deserve the hate it's been getting. My former co-host, Jim Beard, talks about Supergirl. And he wasn't going to do a review because he was going to let a no review be his review. And I started reading into what he says. Oh, I rewatched Superman to get the taste of Supergirl out of my mouth. So I started looking at trying to figure out what it was that upset him because I didn't want to bug him. And since he hadn't said, but looking at what he posted, He said he actually liked the movie all the way up until the ending. And as soon as he said that, I knew exactly why John doesn't like the movie. And that's because Kara goes stabby stabby at the end. And Jim is old school. Superman, Supergirl, they don't kill. You know, it was the same problem he had with Man of Steel. So I get that. But, you know, he admits that the rest of the movie he was enjoying up until then. So, and that was an interesting choice to make. But I get it. Nowadays, superheroes not killing seems kind of weird. You know, you look at all the damage the Joker did over the years and how, you know, Batgirl's, Barbara Gordon's paralysis, Jason Todd's death. Now, I know they've undone all that, but none of that would have happened if Batman had just killed the Joker after his 37th breakout from Arkham Asylum, which is obviously not going to be a good way to get justice. And I'm not saying Batman should kill. I don't want to see Batman kill. But I guess I get why younger generations don't have a problem with their heroes killing. So Andrew says, sorry if I'm late to bring it up, but the Spider-Man brand new first trailer made me happy because with people like Punisher showing up, feels like MCU New York full of Marvel characters. No, that I agreed. I actually thought that was cool. But again, there's just, I don't know. But there's also the whole him having to deal with the fact that Mary Jane and Ned don't know, or MJ and Ned don't know who he is, and Aunt May is dead, and it's like it's going to be a sad thing too. So Jay says Hollywood changes endings all the time. I guess pick and choose which ones work for you and which ones don't. Yeah, and see that was my thing about Supergirl is that you couldn't do the exact comic the way it was because Supergirl wasn't the same going into it. You know, this is a story of Supergirl figuring out who she is. And, you know, it isn't just her taking the time to preserve Ruthie's innocence, which is basically what Woman of Tomorrow is. This is a different story. This is taking a Supergirl who's dealing with the loss of Krypton and having her find how she can be something unique. She doesn't have to be Clark. She doesn't have to be, you know, nice or anything else, but she can be good. She can be her type of hero. And her type of hero, when you have somebody as despicable as Krim, who traffics young women or, and kills people, you know, and who is pretty much saying that he's going to hunt Ruthie down, you off him. I mean, they could have taken that away and just had Lobo do it, but it makes sense. She did it instead of Ruthie. She still protected her and Ruthie's innocence, but did what she thought had to be done. I think Supergirl having a no-kill rule is less important, at least to me, than Superman having it. Superman, I think, is important to the character. Ed says he agrees with Jim Beard, even though he doesn't like Princess Bride. Yeah. It's hard to take Jim seriously when he doesn't like Princess Bride, isn't it? I mean, you think Jim's at home laying there in bed going, Who's talking about me? Uh, all right, guys. Any questions you got for me? Like I said, I came into tonight not really having an idea of what I was going to talk about, other than lanterns and oh, that's the other thing I keep seeing. People saying, "Well, this is how I would fix DC," and I've done some of those. I have done videos like that. The problem is DC has had one failed movie. The DCU. James Gunn has had one failed movie. And I have so many people are out there saying, well, you know, he can't be the studio head and a director and writer. He can't do this. He can't do that. I literally saw somebody say, if James Gunn was smart, let's stop for a minute and think about this. James Gunn is running DC Studios. He's getting to make movies about the comic characters he grew up with. Prior to that, he was over at Marvel making stories about the comic characters he liked. He turned Guardians of the Galaxies into a household name. He got people to care about a tree and a raccoon. He has so many friends that want to continue working with him so that when he does make a movie, he hires a lot of his friends again because they all want to work with him. How many people do you know have said, I am never working with James Gunn again? Zero. No one. There's nobody out there saying they had a bad time working with James Gunn. So, also, James Gunn is married to Jennifer Holland, who is a great actress and attractive and fun. And he's got, you know, this cute dog. He's got the dream job. What is James Gunn not smart about? James Gunn won the frickin' lottery. If this all goes away tomorrow, if Paramount says DC, you know, nope, we're not doing this anymore. Gunn could go back to Marvel and start making movies there again. Gunn could go over to Sony and say, hey, I know you guys have this Valiant universe. Can I play with that a little bit? You know, or, you know, there's other places he could go. He could go back to doing horror movies. James Gunn is doing fine. And I don't think he needs Earl from nowhere telling him what he needs to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell James Gunn that he shouldn't have done Supergirl or that Creature Commando was a bad thing to start with or, you know, anything because he's doing what I would love to do. I'm just saying. So people coming out saying how they would fix the DCU after one bad movie. Again, that 3 out of every 4 people who've seen it said they like it. And I mean, why? Where were these people? I mean, sure, they're saying it. Marvel had a streak of underperforming movies. So yeah, I can understand people going, you know, they kind of need to lean back into this or back. This is barely getting started. You know, this is the Hulk of the DCU. But they don't need to change actors. And they don't necessarily need to change directions. They just maybe need to, I don't know, control the narrative better and maybe increase the marketing. Yeah, Gunn is living several dreams. I can't think of anybody that wouldn't change places with James Gunn right now, short of maybe Jeff Bezos, that type. But anybody who's watching this show, if you could jump into James Gunn's life, we'd all do it, right? Come on. So yeah, the whole idea that this is, you know, some guy from like James doesn't need my opinion on how to fix the DCU. As a writer, yes, I've got my ideas. Like I said last week, I've actually got an idea for Absolute Dead Man, and I'm working on a pitch for it, and I have no idea how I'm going to get it to anybody who might do something with it. But hey, I like it. I'm a storyteller. It's what I do. So I will put it together and maybe see if I can get someone to read it. But do I think that I could do a better job than James Gunn? I've never done what James Gunn is doing. And look at the results of the movies he has done. Are there any real clunkers in there? I don't know. Everybody's got this need to have a negative, and it's been going on for a long time because people click on negative headlines. But that's us. We do that. If we don't click on them, then they won't do it. So, all right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap this up here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully next week I'll have something more to talk about. Something more interesting. And I hope you all have a great week. Okay? And again, if you haven't looked up who Count Binface is, again, it's politics, but it's not our politics. It's England's politics. And it's damn funny. So check out Count Binface, Binface, like trash bin. And otherwise, I will see you guys. Have a great week. Take care of yourself and be good.